It's widely agreed that the housing crisis is one of the biggest problems facing Ireland today. Politicians have talked about potential answers for years, yet nothing ever seems to change. But could the solution be easier than we think? This is Ben Scallan with Gript Media. Housing is a critical issue in Ireland and has been for many years. In fact, according to the Irish Times exit polling, housing was ranked as the second most important issue to voters in the 2020 general election. In response to this, politicians and major political parties have all scrambled to try and come up with a solution.
Under Fine Gael, we have added 10,000 homes to the stock of social housing. This year it'll be 11,000 and next year 12,000.
We're proposing to build directly 50,000 council houses.
And we've set aside €16 billion to build 80,000 social and affordable houses.
And our ambition is to deliver the largest public housing programme that the state has ever seen.
Unfortunately for aspiring homeowners, the solution may not be that simple. The most fundamental law of economics is supply and demand. When there are limited resources and a huge demand for a product, the price naturally goes up. In this case, the proposed solution of building more houses certainly addresses the supply side of things, but may not address the demand. Nobody ever stops to ask why we need so much new housing in the first place. It's well known that Irish politicians are by and large extremely lax on border control. But with an average immigration rate of around 35,000 a year, nobody in our government seems willing to ask the question what kind of strain that's putting on our housing market. It seems obvious that every new arrival to the country has to live somewhere, and that added market competition inevitably drives up the cost. This was addressed in a recent economic letter released by the Irish Central Bank last year. The letter shows that increased population due to mass migration has put strain on our construction sector and vastly increased the number of houses needed to be built. In a nutshell, what this means is, however many houses the government builds, if immigration continues at this pace, every year there will be more new arrivals and more demand than the year before. If one wants to be serious about the housing needs of the current population, we need to first consider reducing the demand. As it stands, 1/3 of people on the social housing list in Dublin are non-nationals, and the perception that new arrivals may be housed ahead of locals has sparked grassroots demonstrations like the recent housing protest in Mulhuddart. It seems unusual when our government is incapable of housing the current population that they would insist on adding tens of thousands of new arrivals to that mix every single year. It's also the case that Dublin has a housing crisis while much of rural Ireland is emptying out. No government has made serious efforts to stop this trend. But demand is not the only issue here. According to the Society of Chartered Surveyors, another big factor affecting house costs is taxation. In the SCSI report, The Real Cost of New House Delivery, they say that reducing VAT for housing-related expenses would dramatically decrease house costs for consumers. As it stands, as much as 16% of an average house's total cost is simply government taxes and levies. What this means is if you looked at a house for €300,000, it's quite possible that almost 50 grand of that is just going to the government. This isn't including a whole host of other potential state-imposed costs, like some local councils who charge you thousands for connecting your house to the water supply even if you do the work yourself. In fact, according to the SCSI's analysis of what the average person can afford, if you subtract tax from the average house costs, the end result is actually within most people's price range. Capital gains tax, development levies, stamp duty, all of these add up to eye-watering amounts that the average person simply cannot afford. Looking at the data from the Irish Central Bank and the SCSI, it seems clear-cut. It's quite possible that restricting immigration to reasonable levels and giving basic tax relief in the housing market could be the solution to Ireland's housing issues, and yet politicians seem unwilling to even entertain these ideas. But what do you think? Would you like to see these policies implemented, or do you think that another strategy is needed to combat the housing crisis? Be sure to share this video and let us know how you feel in the comments below. Thanks for watching.